Welcome to the Finding the Magic podcast, where books come alive. I'm Tricia Copeland, a fiction author and host of this show. If you love books, finding great reads, and hearing about the story behind the story directly from the authors, this is the place for you. Whether you like fantasy, science fiction, dystopian, or romance titles, I think you'll find something to love in my playlist. Listen in to discover something magical about a book or two today.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, Tricia. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am better now.
Good. Today we have Mark McWaters. I guess you would categorize most of your books as horror, correct?
Well, you know what I found out when I came out with my first Gator Man? People thought it was like horror, and a lot of people are turned off by that. And actually, I think I'm more like supernatural thriller.
Okay.
Yeah, I went to a conference in New York City a while ago, Thrill Fest, whatever you call it, and I went to one of the moderators and I said, I don't even know what I write. And she said, well, how's that possible? I said, well, it's Gator Man, and she said, oh, well, you write supernatural thriller. And I said, that's a thing? She said, oh, it is very much a thing. So yes, that's what you write. So I stuck with that.
I
So
like it. I
yeah,
know.
it's
I,
more.
I write about vampires, and somebody was like, that's horror. I'm like, I don't really consider vampires horror, but
No, Twilight isn't horror.
no,
I don't think, but
I don't think so. But.
yeah, you can make
Okay.
it, you know. Okay.
Yeah, I guess. Supernatural thriller then. So your first book was Gator Man?
Yes. Second one was throughthelight.com. And that's about a website where you can talk to the dead. And that was a definite YA.
Okay.
My protagonist was like 15, and Benji's mom had just died, and the girl in the high school came up to him. She was a goth, and so naturally everybody was afraid of her. And she was a um, uh, Wicca. She was a Wicca, and so people thought she was a witch. People thought so. He was frightened, kind of. And she came up to him. She said, "Hey, Benji, I heard about your mom. I'm so sorry. Here," and she gave him a business card, and she said, "This helped me when my father passed. It might help you too." And it was a card for throughthelight.com, and it said, "Talk to loved ones who passed." And so he took that home, and after a couple of days of, maybe, maybe not, he dialed into it, and it did the whole going through the light, white, I see white, tunnel, blah, 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 and then a line of copy came up on the screen and it said, "Hey, Benji, how you doing?" And he said, "Mom?" She said, "Of course, silly. Who else?" And that started an interesting journey. Um, of course, it was not his mom. He was talking about something much worse. Um, so yeah, there was that. There was that. And my fave so far is Overcooked. That's about people who stay in the womb 12 months instead of 9. And so they come out literally a little more highly evolved, and they can do some things. And so that was fun.
Yeah, I was reading about that one on Goodreads. It looked really intriguing.
I hope so. Yeah, and I do them all myself. So I'm self-published because I don't have an agent yet, and it's really hard. It's hard to hook up with one. And hopefully this thing coming up with writers of the future may help me a little bit there. Who knows?
Oh, fun. Well, let's dive deeper into Overcooked. I think that's your most recent release, right?
Yes, yes. He The thing is that he didn't know he was special exactly, because he just grew up, and he had his life, and he could tell things, he like who was at the door before they opened it and who's on the phone, and he had some skills, but they just thought that was Benji, and that was just him. And so one day he's eating lunch at an outdoor cafe, and this girl walks up to him, and she looks down at him, and she says, "Hey, Benji," and do I know you? She said, "Well, no, but I know you. I've been following you for a while." And she said, "How is it being a?" She called him overcooked. He said, "How you're an overcooked?" He said, "What?" And she said, "You have never heard that term, have you?" He said, "No." She said, "Overcooked. Let me out. I'm done. I want to." He says, "You need to leave me alone." And she said, you're going to need some help." And she basically teaches him what he is. And we find out that there are other overcooks out there, not a lot. Generally, babies don't last that long in the womb. And so, there's a sort of an organization, a cabal or whatever of these overcooked people. They want to stay under the radar. They don't want to be hassled. And what jumps this whole thing off is he discovers that he can do things like a magician would. He could actually levitate. He could spin a basketball and have it float in midair in front of him like a magic trick. And so he thought he had ambitions to become the next David Blaine, and he went out on the streets of Atlanta doing his fun little shticks, and crowd gathered. It was a huge crowd, and it was getting out into the street, and he said something like, he said, "Can y'all see me out there?" "No." So he raised himself up. He levitated off a couple feet. "How about now?" "No, do it again." So he got up a little higher, and then a siren whooped, and the cops stopped, and he was causing a disturbance, and so they waded in, and he wanted everybody to disperse, and they started hassling him for papers. He didn't have a permit to do a sidewalk magician thing on the streets of downtown Atlanta. And somebody yelled from the back of the crowd, "Hey, make the cop disappear," like that was a joke. And somebody said, "I know how you make a cop disappear." And a shot rang out from the crowd, and the cop got shot in the neck, and he fell, and everybody ran. And Benji went over to the cop, and he knelt beside him, and he didn't know what to do. So he put his hand on the wound on the neck. And the people that were left used their iPhones, and they filmed everything like people do now. And what happened with the cop is he felt, my guy felt heat in his hand and heat up his arm, and then just searing heat, but he wouldn't take his hand away. And when the EMTs came and they pulled him off of the body or off the cop, they said, "I thought you said this man got shot in the neck." He said, "He did." Well, there was no wound anymore. So he healed him. So what happened is, on video that went viral, there's this happening where this weird looking guy, he has I forgot, he has like an egg-shaped head with no hair. That's what happens to them. They all look like that. And so he kind of became hunted. And all of the council of the overcooked people saw this, and they are pissed because they they don't want people to know they exist. They don't want anything to happen like that. And he just did everything wrong. So they are after him. And a religious fanatic, mother, I guess, was it Mother Mary? It's been a while. She has a sort of her own little church, and she saw this, and she figured he's spawn of the devil. Only God works miracles. The devil is playing with us, and so it's her mission to get rid of him. So he's got a couple groups that are on his ass that have to get rid of him, and that's kind of the book, and it's fun. He finds out what he has a heart, and once he realizes he can save people, that's his mission, and none of them want him to do that because imagine what happens if it gets out, like that he can cure people. And so, yeah, it has a pretty explosive ending.
Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun. How old is the character? Is he an adult character?
He's a young adult. He's
Young adult.
like just started his first job, kind of early freshman, whatever college. Yeah.
Okay, neat.
Yeah.
That,
So that was a blast. I love that one.
how did you come up with that idea?
Um, I don't really know. That's a really good question. It had to have been some talk. Somebody was talking about, gestation and stuff. I was, I started out to be a doctor, so I had all kinds of bio classes and in school, and I'm kind of sciencey oriented. And yeah, that forms a lot of the ideas I have for what I write. I kind of like to have a scientific weirdity, um, and supernatural too. That doesn't hurt. So I like that. I like writing what I like to read.
Right. So I
That's
guess does your supernatural have any like scientific underpinnings in Gator Man?
No, no, Gator Man. I riffed on the old Indians, the Plains Indians. Um, they had their buffalo, right, the bison and stuff back in the day. But this is with a tribe in the Everglades down in Florida, the Miccosukee Indians, and I make this part up. But I figured, well, they don't have deer and bison, but they have a lot of gators. And I figured that's the food source for the tribe. Excuse me. And their shaman is basically he can call the gators. If the tribe is starving or if they're in bad straits and they need contact, he just summons gators and they come. That's a skill with a gator man in the tribe back then. And what has happened over time is that that sort of that bloodline or whatever has become thinned out over the generations, and now the Gator Man isn't exactly like that. Um, and on the heels of a series of murders in the glades where bodies are posed and skinned like people do to gators. They skin gators well, it's kind of like that. So you think that, oh, okay, so now the gator man's gone bad, right? And it's my hero in that is a wildlife officer, fish and game, and his his one flaw is he's kind of terrified of gators, which is fun. But yeah, that's the story. And indeed, half man, half gator, that's the thing that lives down there. And so we follow that.
Interesting. Is it a shifter person or is he actually
No,
always half and
he's
half?
always he looks bad. He doesn't shift. And so naturally people want to kill him. I mean, because look at him, but it's not him. He's not the one doing this. And his one of his the female lead in the story is she works at like a gator park, Gatorland, whatever, and she does the emceeing and helps with the gators in the show. And so she's real committed. She's a Miccosukee Indian, and she and my guy, they sort of get on the trail. Because Gator Man literally is a tribal figure. He's a Miccosukee shaman-y kind of person. She wants to protect him. She doesn't want him just killed outright. And the people in Everglades City, they'll go out into the glades with their rifles on their airboats and stuff and try to find him and kill him. And she thinks that they need to intervene and get him and save him. So that's kind of the story of Gator Man.
Well, gators are kind of scary. I mean, you don't really want to mess with a gator.
Oh,
So
I know.
that's kind of valid.
Yeah, they killed a lot of poodles down here in Florida. you don't walk your dog on the shore of a pond. They
No.
say if there's enough water to look like a pond, there's a gator in it. It is what it is. So Floridians know that, tourists don't.
Yeah, I grew up in South Georgia, so I'm very gator aware. The funniest thing, and I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but here in Colorado, we have a gator farm, which is the weirdest thing ever. And it's in the middle of this hot springs. And so it actually started
Ah,
as a tilapia farm where they were raising tilapia in the hot springs and selling the tilapia. But sometimes the tilapia would die. And so they brought in the gators to eat the extra fish that they didn't need. And now the gators just live in these hot springs and you can go see them like a gator farm. So it's very
that's
interesting
that's
to
hilarious.
see a gator in the middle of the snow.
Oh, exactly. Well, I went to a conference in New Orleans one time, and I took one of those tours. You get on the airboat and you go out and they show you gators and stuff. And my guide was a sort of a wildlife person down there, and he took in injured animals in the glades down there in Louisiana, and he brought an otter that he'd saved to the boat so we could all hold him and pet
Aw.
him and stuff. And he was named Otto. And so I used part of that in Gator Man. I have an otter. In fact, an otter sort of opens the book because we hear a shriek or a scream echo in the glades, and that is an otter trapped in like fishing line and stuff, and he can't get away. And there's a gator coming for him. And the otter knows what's about to happen and, doesn't want to happen. So my wildlife guy on his airboat, he goes to investigate the scream, the shriek, and he sees what's about to happen. And so he unlimbers his rifle and basically shoots at the gator and kills it to save the otter. And he goes and he saves the otter. But this entire activity was a not a gator, but a gator man saw it. And so he goes back underwater and he submerges. And so now Gator Man knows that this guy just killed a gator, which is not good. And so that kind of, yeah, just a little tension to start the thing off.
Well, it's funny because I read the description and that, that kind of starts off your description on Goodreads, and you kind of assume it's a person being killed, but that's an interesting twist there of the otter.
Yeah. Yeah. And besides, I mean, an otter, God, they're so cute.
They are. I love the river otters. They're super cute.
Yeah.
So
So
what's next for you? Do you have any? I saw you have a lot of short stories on your
I
website as
got a
well.
bunch. I've got at least two or three times that. The hard thing for me is putting them online. I'm real bad about, keeping my website up and yeah, I have got a bunch. On and the I like short stories because I read one time that the easiest way to get something turned into a movie is to write a short story, not a novel. Short stories have a beginning and an end. They're really easy to block out to make it to film. And I thought, wow, and that's an interesting way to make extra cash. Write a bunch of short stories, enter them, send them out, whatever, and try that. So I've been writing for a long time, and yeah, I have tons. I'm working on a novel now that basically is set in a cemetery, and my hero is a gravedigger, and it's his job. There's a lot more to digging a grave than just, making it pretty. And anyway, in this book, and he sort of, when finally somebody, they get interred and they get buried and stuff, it's his job to kind of ease them into the next phase of their life, which is the book right now, the working title is The In-Between. And we all go to the in-between right after we we die. And so it's his job to help that passage. And we find out that the female protagonist or well, no, partner, his partner, she runs a like a ghost tour. They're everywhere, and people on ghost tours, they always see orbs. Oh, look, there's an orb, and they get in their pictures and things like that. Well, word has it that this cemetery is the best place to see orbs. And so he's just interred a couple, a married couple, and he's waiting for the right time so he can go help them pass through to the in-between. And he hears a group of people coming up behind him, and it's her on tour, and he's not happy and tries to get her out of there. You're interfering on something very private, and of course she looks around and she says, well, your audience looks dead to me. I mean, what are you talking about? And then two orbs rise up from the newly in the graves, and he has a dog. He has a dog named Digger, and Digger woofs, woofs, and he says, I hear, boy, I hear. You people need to leave now. And then they appear, and the people go berserk. Oh, look, it's really. And they take pictures and stuff. And so that's how that one starts. And
I can tell that this may cause havoc, that the people actually interrupted this.
yeah, oh my God, he's so mad. And so he sets Digger. Digger is a border collie kind of herd dog, and Digger makes him leave, and they run away, except she doesn't. And so they start a little relationship kind of then. And so that's what I'm working on now.
I love that premise. That's really neat. Well,
And okay,
go ahead. Keep going.
okay, one last, and I've got a short story, maybe, or it might be a novel. I haven't gotten far enough in, but it's what if, with all the advancements in DNA and splicing, gene splicing and stuff like that, what if there's a DNA, there's a gene or whatever for evil? What if they could find that and get rid of that gene or whatever, could they abolish evil on the earth? And that's the premise of this other thing I'm working on. It's called, right now, the working title is It Started with Original Sin. And I've got a biologist, geneticist expert. I've got a priest, and those two are best buddies. They've been best friends since elementary school. And I have a social worker who knows about, I needed somebody that could get me into a serial killer's mind and stuff like that, because they're patently evil. And I thought, well, that'll be an interesting trio. So let's see where this goes. So
that is super interesting. Yeah. And like, what other unintended consequences happen if you knock out that gene, right?
Right. Because probably it's necessary. But, hey, what do they say? The road to whatever is paved with good intentions.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah. All those sound super intriguing. Thank you so much, Mark, for being here. Mark McWatson, tell everyone where we can find you and your books.
You're going to find my story in the 42nd edition of the Writers of the Future anthology. And it was such an honor to be included in that. I placed second, and there's like 12 of us in that book. And my story is called Ghost Dog. And I was reading the entry requirements for a horror. Yes, that one was definitely a horror, a contest. And they said, we don't want the normal, I'm sorry to say this, but they don't want another vampire story. Just give us a new twist on ghosts. And I thought, okay, well, there's so many things that ghosts haunt. They haunt houses, and they haunt people and hotels and boats and cars. But I never read a horror story where a dog was haunted. And that sort of started me on my ghost dog journey. And so that was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and
that's definitely
I
a new
get
twist.
I get to star my own dog. He's a little Westie, and yeah, he's definitely not haunted in real life, but
Well, that's good.
yeah. So yeah, that's you need to get that book, you guys. That Writers of the Future anthology is every one of the stories is amazing. I've read them all, and I'm in very, very good company. So if you like fantasy, if you like sci-fi, it's the book for you.
Fun. Yeah, definitely look that up. And short stories are so great because you can read them quickly and um yeah, just
Yeah.
get
I mean,
find lots of new authors to love.
they even have, yeah, I know they have little flash stories. They have contests for 100-word stories. I mean, yeah, if you don't have an attention span, they're great. So,
Well, and as a novelist, writing a short story for me is hard. Like it's definitely a different talent than writing a novel. So,
yeah, I test my novel ideas with short stories. And because I guess I'm verbose. I don't know, but I they tend to go long. My short stories end up being at least 10,000 words, 10 to 15, and there's a lot of times I could go longer, and so you know that's a test ground for my novels.
fun. What is your website so people know where to
Um,
go to find all your books?
MarkMcWaters.com. It's my
Great.
name.com.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for being here, and I hope you'll come back when you publish another book.
Oh, I will. This
Great.
is awesome. Thank you for having me. It's been fun. And go
Yeah.
right. Go right.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay. You too.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Finding the Magic podcast. I'm your host, author and podcaster Tricia Copeland, and I love getting behind the scenes. If you like the podcast, make sure to subscribe and stop in each week to discover new authors and books. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep finding the magic.